What's going on, everybody? Toby from Toby Wayne Studios. Today I thought that I would just show this quick little tutorial on how I personally clean up the seam lines on my sculptures and busts. I get asked this quite a bit. Resin, depending on the mold that you're doing, you will either have a two-part mold or a glove mold. The two-part mold will actually leave a seam all the way around because that's where the two silicone halves meet together, and then once it's cast, if it's off a little tiny bit, there'll be a little bit of a flash seam line here. If you have a glove mold, it'll be running up the back because that's where you slit it up the back and it just peels apart. This is a two-parter, so there's a seam that goes all the way around, which two-part molds kind of suck because you have this seam that runs all the way around. But that's okay, we can take care of that. So these are the tools that I use to clean up the seam lines on my busts and castings. So to start, just some basic stuff here. I've got some sandpaper, of course, several different layers, P220, P400, P800, and then the list goes all the way up to 1,000. And I just kind of slowly start my way up from those lower numbers and go up to the high numbers. So this is one way to do it. Of course, there are files. I just started getting into using these. I used this one in particular on that Scarlet Spider Venom mashup on the tentacles. This is a nice one because it's got the triangle, triangle edges, flat edges, but there's a whole plethora of different types of files in here: round files, flat files, angled files. So this will definitely get the job done as well when you're trying to get in here and knock down that seam line. And you just want to use a gentle hand when you're doing this because you're removing portions of your sculpt, whatever that is. So this is also an option. One of the other things that I also use, being in the dental business, I have the privilege of having some dental tools, just old dental tools that were laying around that I've had over the years. This is a cleoid discoid. This is just a PTC carver. Anyway, yeah, they're nice because they've got just a nice sharp edge, and then here's a nice little edge here, and then this is for nice tight areas to get in and clean. So what I will do is I'll take the sharp edge and I'll just slowly start to work my way around the seam line. And again, I'm being very careful in my removal of the seam because it's easy to knock a lot of the detail off if you're not paying attention or you start to dig too deep. Whatever it is that you're doing, however you're removing, you always want to be taking that into consideration. The more you remove, the more detail you possibly could remove. So with that being said, it's kind of a tedious process, and again, your seam line is going to be dictated by how well you make your molds, and if your molds are positioned together tight enough, or if they're too tight, that could be problematic as well because then the silicone will want to shift. So anyway, that's basically how I remove the flash and or the seam lines on these resin castings, and then you can just come back once you've got the majority of it removed. You can just very gently start working your way around that seam. And I won't bore you by taking off, the whole thing here, but I just wanted to do a quick little tutorial on how I personally clean my seam lines. And then what can happen too is I will either spray the piece with a black primer, and then that really helps me to see where those seams are. If I miss something in the initial cleaning, that black primer will just make those areas pop, and I'll be able to see, oh, that's still a raised area. So then I'll just go back, lightly sand down that area, or use the carver to get in tight, and then I'll just re-spray matte or the black primer on it. One of the other ways too that you can fix a seam line that is really bad is to use the Magic Sculpt. You can mix up 2 parts, of course, part A, part B, in equal portions, and then you can come back in, and once this is down, if it's really bad, then you can actually re-sculpt with that, and you just apply that back on there. Use water to smooth it in and blend it in, and then once that kicks off overnight or 3 hours later, it's actually pliable enough to work with. But you can really smooth that back in and re-sculpt it that way too, just to knock those down. One of the other things too I wanted to mention is once this gets cleaned up and in the casting stage, then I can actually come back, and if I see that there's a stubborn seam line that's just looking really bad, that is tough, and I don't want to break out the Magic Sculpt and wait for the 3 hours, you can actually come back in with your carver and redefine all of those areas that were troublesome. So you can kind of re-sculpt using your carver to come back in and just knock down and re-add in those little finesse, little fine details and wrinkles, and I find that helps too, to help mask and blend the seam lines. So yeah, so just sandpaper, files, carvers, and I'm sure that there are other ways that you can do this as well. These are just ways, again, that I do it. There's no rhyme or reason really, or right or wrong. You can do it either way, any way, as long as it works. I think I've even seen people use like steel wool Brillo pads and the such to knock those seam lines down. So anyway, that's what I know about removing seam lines from your products, or from my products anyway. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody for checking this video out. I hope that it helps. It's pretty much just basic common sense stuff, but beginners out there may or may not know some techniques and tricks and tips to better the seam lines. So anyway, thank you guys so much for checking out this video. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for all the new likes and follows and subscribers and all that awesome stuff that keeps me going. I really appreciate it. You guys are the best, and I am so thankful for you. So anyway, thank you guys so much for that, and I will catch you in the very next video.